If you are not making money watching my weekly analysis, then your execution is very, very poor because price has been respecting all of the zones I've been talking about throughout my analysis. So we go again this week, starting with gold. On gold, you can see if you've been watching my analysis, I've been particular about the 2074 region, how you can obviously see how price has rejected it historically. The first time we came into the 2074 region was in 2020 August, and then we repeated the same thing around March 2022, and then December 2023. 2074 is a strong resistance region, and no wonder we are beginning to see this massive rejection from here. The way we close for this particular month of December is going to tell us if price is going to continue higher or fall from that zone. As you can see, we have a long wick above already and a massive rejection back to the downside. So if we close this particular month of December with a red candle, then I will expect gold to continue falling to the downside. Now let's see how we closed for last week. Or let me say last 2 weeks, we saw this massive rejection from that zone. As you can see, and price continued lower. However, we've gone for a little bit of retracement on this weekly time frame, closing last week with a bullish candle. But let's go check out the daily time frame. On the daily time frame, you can see this massive bearish engulfing candle with which we closed for last Friday. You can see how price has rejected this zone twice historically before blasting above it, but we came back below it and it looks like we've gone back for a retest and we look to be pointing to the downside. So what should we be expecting next week? Well, for next week, I will be expecting for price to drop into this zone, which is 2008 region, all right? 2008 region, or we can make it the 2000 region so that we can make it a round figure, all right? So when we come there, we may go back up. We may most likely go back up considering how we closed last week's candle. I mean, last week's candle, let's go back to the weekly time frame, closed with a bullish candlestick. So we may see price trying to push back up to the upside. All right, so let's go back to the daily time frame. So even if we're going to continue back up, first of all, I would like to see price come into the 2008 region. Let's go to the 4-hour time frame. So on the 4-hour time frame, I remembered last week price was trading around here, and I specifically mentioned that price may reject this zone and come all the way down into the 1980 region. If you doubt me, here's the video. 2008.43 region before making its way into the 1980 area. Welcome back, guys. So price rejected that zone and we made our way a little bit below the 1980 region, but you can see how there was a massive rejection to the upside. So for next week, like I said, when we're on the daily time frame, I'll be expecting price to make its way into 2008 region, 2007 region, or the 2000 region for a round figure. But this 2000 region is way below, so I'm actually going to be looking at the 2010 or 2008 region before we either continue back up, or if we break below it, we are going to continue downward. Now let's check out the 1-hour time frame so that we can get a little bit of clarity. So on gold for next week, you can see price has created a head and shoulders pattern here. This is the head and this is the right shoulder. All right, if you don't want to look at it like that, you could also look at it as a double top. Price came here, gave us a double top, and now we are trading here. So ideally, I would like to see price pull back into this region before we fall to the downside. That will give us a good trading distance between this region to this region here. But for next week, however, I'll be expecting to see price fall into the 2008 region before we either continue back upward or break down below and trade all the way to the downside, which is the 1980 region once again. Now that is my outlook on gold. The next on my list is DXY. Now on DXY, you can see how we massively fell to the downside last week. All right, and if you've been following my analysis for quite some time now, I've been particular about these two regions, which is the 102.152 and the 101.556 area. If you doubt me, let's go back in time. As you can see, price has tested this trend line at least twice historically, right? So for all I care, price may be coming back into that trend line before we continue higher. Welcome back, guys. So price has made its way down into that zone, so anything can happen from this zone. We may see price come and do this next week, or if we break below here, then guys, we are trading all the way to the downside. We are trading all the way to the downside. The only roadblock I can see here now is the 99.703 area. So if we come there, we may stall, go back here, retest before we fall to the downside. So what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is, if we fail to reject this trend line, we've seen one touch, this is the second touch, and now I can say we've made the third touch. If I readjust this trend line, we've seen the third touch happen last week, and this zone is a strong support area here. As you can see, it has been tested multiple times, so there's every possibility that price may continue higher starting from next week. However, if we break lower, then 99.703 will be my first level target. Then if we come into this region, I would like to see a pullback into this region, then before price falls to the downside until we come into this area here, which is around 89.352. I'm using the TVC dollar index anyway, so you could go check this out on your own chart on TradingView. Let's check out the daily time frame. So on the daily time frame, you can see price fell into that zone, completed the third touch of the trend line. As you can see, this is the first touch, second touch, and now we've completed the third touch here. So there's every possibility that price is going to continue higher. However, if we go to the 4-hour time frame, I like to look for a termination point. So there's a trend line above price on the 4-hour time frame, so price could easily continue higher until we come into the third touch of this trend line that has been tested at least twice historically. So we'll come into this third touch before we blast all the way to the downside. My solid buying region will be for price to break above this trend line, give this area a retest. Then if we spot the retest, then guys, we can now start swinging Euro USD to the downside, GBP USD to the downside, because a strong dollar index indicates a strong USD across board. All right, so above this trend line would be a solid area to start buying. Of course, between here and the trend line, we could be going in and out of trades, but above this trend line, that's a solid zone where you can buy and be at peace with price movements. All right, anyways, I don't trade the dollar index, so let's quickly go to some of the dollar pairs, starting with Euro USD, which is the only pair I trade for now. So on Euro USD, let's check out the weekly time frame. On the weekly time frame, we've successfully closed last week with a bullish engulfing candle. How do I determine a bullish engulfing candle? I know you want to say the textbook bullish engulfing candle should be this candle engulfing the entire previous candle, right? But for me, price opened at a low point and closed at a high point. You can see, remember, in a bearish candle, price opens above and closes below, while in a bullish candle, price opens below and closes above. So you can see how price closed above the previous candle. So to me, I classify this as a bullish engulfing candle. Even if it's not the textbook bullish engulfing candle, I still classify this as a bullish engulfing candle. Of course, price made its way up to this point before we saw a massive rejection to the downside. We can't see it clearly on the weekly time frame, so we'll go to the daily time frame shortly. But before we go to the daily time frame, let's go to the monthly time frame. Remember, at the beginning of last month, I talked about the fact that price closed last month. Sorry, I said beginning of last month. I actually meant to say beginning of this month, December, right? This was last month's candle, November's candle, and we closed with a massive bullish engulfing candle, massive bullish candle, right? and I said I'll be expecting the month of December to close as a bullish candle also. All right, so depending on the nature of how we close for this month, price may just continue higher or we can just continue lower from this particular point. You can see for the best part of the year, since January of this year, price has been moving sideways on the monthly time frame since January. This was January's candle, and this is where we are December. So no significant move up or down. Price just basically moved sideways the whole year. That's crazy, right? That's crazy. Many people were not profitable this year because of this. I'm not surprised, right? So it takes skill to be able to navigate through this tricky market. All right, so that's why you actually need to get a mentor, get mentorship, or if you choose to go the longer route like I did, then you can learn on your own. By all means, it's also possible, just that one takes longer period to gain mastery than the other. Anyway, so on the weekly time frame, we've seen that we close with a bullish engulfing candle. Remember, last month also closed with a bullish engulfing candle. So what does that tell you? At some point, you should be expecting a bullish Euro USD at some points. However, on Friday, price shot all the way from this zone to the top here. Now we are trading at this zone, and this zone is beginning to look like a double top being created, which may indicate price falling all the way to the downside. But remember, in trading, you don't predict the market, you follow the market. All right, so for now, considering how we closed for last week, I want to think that price is going to eventually go bullish at some point next week. However, let's be aware of the fact that price is trading at a strong resistance, and no wonder we saw this massive rejection on Friday. You can easily spot this rejection here. Historically, there's another rejection here, there was another one here, and no wonder price came back into that zone and we saw this massive rejection to the downside. So it is possible that price may just fall all the way to the downside, but that's a big ask for now. At least let's see how we close for next week before we can start selling. I mean, if we close with a bearish candle next week, then we could consider selling to the downside. All right, but for now, I am more bullish than bearish. And now I will go to the 4-hour time frame. So before I go to the 4-hour time frame, let's go back to the daily time frame. Now on the daily time frame, I think what I'll be expecting for next week is for price to come down into this zone. All right, this zone has also been used as an area of support and resistance historically, making it a strong zone to look out for. Check out this rejection here when price broke above it. Check out this other rejection here. Check out this rejection here. Check it out here, check it out here, check this out. There's something interesting about this zone, obviously, by now, because we've seen multiple rejections from that zone. So for next week, I won't be surprised if price fall into this zone, which is the 1.08370 area, before we continue higher. However, if we break below that area, then 1.07557 will be my next target. I hope that makes sense. So price falling into this zone, I'll be expecting a rejection to the upside. However, if we break below this zone, then that will be my cue that price is willing to fall into the downside here. But like I said, I am bullish minded for now. Now let's go to the 4-hour time frame. So on the 4-hour time frame, sorry, my chart looks messy, right? Pardon me. So on the 4-hour time frame, price is sitting on top of this 4-hour support level. Now price has tested these zones multiple times historically, right? And as you can see, price is back at that zone, so we could reject this way, but I think I'll be expecting price to break below here, to find its way into this zone before we continue higher. All right, but remember, just like I mentioned on the daily time frame, if we break below this zone, I'll be waiting for a retest to trade to this next zone at the bottom here. So you can pause this video and go plot these zones on your chart. But for next week, I'm expecting a bullish price action, right? I'm expecting a bullish price action, and that's what I'm going to be looking out for. Even if I'm selling, I'm aware that I'm trading counter trend and I'll be going in and out of the markets. The only trade I will be confident in going into next week is a bullish trade. All right, so that's my perspective on Euro USD. Now, AUD USD. AUD USD is looking like we are creating a double bottom at this point here. All right, and you can see the bullish engulfing candle with which we closed for last month of November, and so far this month, because we're on the monthly time frame, so far this month price is looking bullish. Let's check out how we closed for last week. Now for last week, I had this trend line here that has been tested once, twice, and this is the third time, right? Before I continue with the weekly analysis, let's go to the monthly time frame. So we have this trend line also on the monthly time frame. I want you to spot the difference in color. This trend line is dark, right? So that when we go to the lower time frames, you can be able to separate this dark trend line. So for me, I think should price continue higher, we are coming into this trend line before we now start coming lower or break above it to continue trading higher. Now let's go back to the weekly time frame. So on the weekly time frame, this is that trend line from the monthly time frame. So what does this tell you? Price may just keep blasting to the upside until we come to that trend line above. All right, and thankfully the trend line above confluences with an area of strong resistance that has been tested twice historically. So I won't be surprised if price comes for the third touch before we collapse or break above it to continue trading higher. You have to think in probabilities if you want to be a successful trader. You can be so sure about the direction of the markets that you'll be so blindsided and you end up losing that trade. But I forgot to mention something. If you remember some months back, I was in this trade. I was expecting for price to drop into this region before this bullish move kicks in. The price came close but never dropped into that zone. I was in that trade. I broke even and I didn't make money from that trade. I actually even ended up losing money due to swap fees because I held for weeks and weeks and weeks. And this goes to show or buttress the point I was trying to make earlier where I said you don't want to hold on to a trade with that complete conviction that this is going to happen. I was so sure, I won't even lie to you, and it happens. Sometimes we can't control these things. I was so sure that price was going to fall into this zone, and that was why I didn't even take partials. So I ended up getting stopped out at break even. I ended up even giving the market my spread, right? And now price has been bullish ever since, and price has actually broken out of this strong trend line, right, giving us a solid bullish engulfing candle. So for next week, I'll be expecting price to at least push into the 0.67879 area before we either bounce off or break above it to make our way into this trend line above. And this trend line is coming from the monthly time frame. Let's go to the daily time frame so that we can see more price action. So this is that trend line. Price has broken above the trend line and all of that. Now, but Friday, the way we close Friday, we could see a sell to buy scenario next week. So what this basically means is we could see an initial sell-off before we now buy into this area here. So let's go to the 4-hour time frame so that we can see where we should be taking trades from. So this is my initial target, this zone. Let me just call any number within that zone. Let me say 0.67917 area. So that's my initial target. However, price has created a new higher high here, which is obviously higher than this and this zone, right? So I'll be expecting for price to continue higher, but price has moved a little bit further than where would be an ideal place to jump into the trade. I usually like a 2-to-1 reward to risk ratio at least. We can still execute this, but I'm actually not confident in this trade. You know why? Because of this choppiness here. Look at how price was choppy around here. So had it been it was a smooth move, maybe a break, and then we are trading around here, I could be like, okay, I'll be waiting for a pullback into here so that we trade to the upside. But why is price stalling around here? There's something holding price back, right? So we have to be careful about that. So because of that, I'd like to wait it out. I'd like to actually see price pull back to these lows here around here, which is around 0.66089 before we continue higher. So if this happens, that way we have a good distance to trade. Maybe something like this. Stop loss is below here. Then take profit around here, giving us a decent 3 to 3.2 reward to risk, right? So which means if you are risking 1k, you are going for a reward of 3,200. That makes sense, right? So I actually like to see price drop into here before we make it to the upside. So that is my view on AUD USD. I am bullish on AUD USD, either from this zone to this zone, or from this zone at the bottom here to this zone at the top here. Now the next on my list is GBP USD. GBP USD, first of all, let's see how we closed for last week. So GBP USD is trading at this pink zone. This zone has also been tested multiple times historically. Let's go to the monthly time frame. Remember, at the beginning of this month, I made mention that price may make its way into this trend line before we continue lower, or if we break above it, then we could continue higher. So that's still a possibility. Let's see how that plays out, hopefully. So back to the weekly time frame, we close with a solid bullish candle last week. Actually, last week I was thinking price was going to fall after spotting this bearish engulfing candle, but it is what it is, right?
It is what it is. It is what it is.
I actually don't trade other pairs. I only trade Euro USD for now. I've been saying this for the past couple of weeks now. So you can see that price has tested these zones, this pink zone, multiple times around here, all these areas here, and price is currently trading at that pink zone. So there's something interesting about that zone. So it's a deciding factor. If we see a strong close above here next week, then we are going to continue all the way to the top here. However, if we see a daily candlestick close below this area, then we are coming down. But let's go to the daily time frame so that we can see more cleaner price action. So on the daily time frame, price is currently trading at 1.26766. But for next week, I'll be hoping for price to continue dropping down into this zone before we continue higher. Something like this before we continue higher into this region here, which is 1.31258. All right. However, if we open next week, and let's say maybe Monday or Tuesday or whatever, we see a daily candlestick close above this green zone, then we are not going to drop down into the zone anymore. So I'll just expect price to rally all the way to the same target. I hope that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's either we drop into the zone before we make it to the top side, or if we see a daily candlestick close above here, then we'll trade to the upside. Let's go to the 4-hour time frame. So on the 4-hour time frame, these are the zones I'm actually expecting price to come into. This zone here, which is between 1.26184 and 1.25915. So on the 4-hour time frame, this is where I'd like to see price continue dropping into before we continue bullish, because clearly you can see that price is creating new higher highs and higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, right? Higher lows, higher high, higher low. We have a new higher high here, so I would expect a higher low around here before we continue higher. All right, so like I said, overall target is at the top side around here. For next week, I'll basically want to see a sell to buy scenario, sell into the zone, then a buy to the upside. So that is that for GBP USD. Let's quickly look at JPY index. Remember, just like DXY, JPY index measures the strength or weakness of the Japanese yen. So if you see a bullish JPY pair, if you see a bullish JPY index, then expect a strong JPY amongst most of the JPY pairs. All right, and if we see a bearish JPY index, then expect a weak JPY across most of the JPY pairs. So I remembered last 2 weeks when we closed this particular week, this is the weekly time frame, I specifically told you why I'm expecting JPY index to rally to the upside. And if you look at the size of these bullish candlesticks, you see they are not playing around, they are not messing around. If you see big candlesticks, for instance, this is a bullish scenario, right? So counter trend, you started seeing big bullish candlesticks. You can see how price made its way to this top side even before dropping to the downside, and now you can see solid bullish candlesticks to the upside. However, price is trading at a resistance zone, so we could stall around here for a bit before we break above it. Let's go to the daily time frame and see what's happening. Last week, I actually specifically called your attention to the fact that price will drop into the zone before we rally all the way to the upside, and price did exactly just that. You're going to see clearly on the 4-hour time frame. So last week I specifically called your attention that price is going to fall into this zone before we continue higher. So if you doubt me, check it out. So if we break below this area, then this is the area I'll be expecting that pullback to come into. All right, because this area below has also been tested multiple times historically. So welcome back, guys. Price did exactly as I projected, and we dropped into that zone, and now we're on our way back up. So within this large zone, let me say most importantly, this green zone, which is 796.0, I'll be expecting for price to come into that zone before we break above it to continue higher or fall to the downside. So let's see how that play out. But we don't trade the JPY index, right? We just use it to gauge what is going on in the market. So now that we've seen what is happening on the JPY index, let's look at USD JPY. So USD JPY for the past how many weeks? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, price has been dropping hard, right? And I rightly predicted that, especially at the beginning of the month when I saw how we closed for November, this bearish engulfing candlestick at a strong resistance zone that has repelled price previously. Then we came back there, saw a bearish engulfing candle. Then what do you expect? Price would definitely fall to the downside, and I specifically mentioned this, and so far price has been falling. If we come to the weekly time frame, it's obvious price has been falling. Let's go to the daily time frame. So on the daily time frame, also last 2 weeks or so, price was trading around here, and I called your attention to the fact that I'll be expecting price to drop into 144.956, and then will drop into 142.241, and that was exactly what happened. But let's go to the 4-hour time frame. Something interesting happened. Price was trading around here last week, and I was actually expecting two things: for either price to, if we see a strong rejection from here, then we could sell to the downside here. However, I called your attention to the fact that we have a Fibonacci retracement level at the time when price was trading around here. A rejection of the 0.6 fib level would be a good place to like drop price, but there was no confirmation, obviously, as you can see. So I also now told you that if we fail to continue falling from here, then I would wait for price to come into this zone before we fall to the downside. If you doubt me, check it out. And if price, let's say for whatever reason, fails to give us an entry at this zone, then I'll be waiting for price to come to the 0.786 level before we drop. So welcome back, guys. That was last week's video, and you can see price came there and there was that rejection. So like I said, if you're a struggling trader and you don't keep up with our weekly analysis, then guys, it's your fault, not me. I come here and I tell you what I expect in the coming week, and they play out. Go and watch all my previous videos. You know, the stats don't lie, right? So now price is trading around here, and you can see how price has been quite choppy around this place. So it's a tricky one, guys. So going into next week, I'd like to see price either take out, let's go back to the daily time frame so that we'll see clearly. So I'd like to see price take out this area, you know, take it out, retest it, then we drop to the downside. That's scenario 1. Price has been super bearish, so price may just decide to stall, considering how the dollar index is bouncing off of a strong support region. So I'm not saying we are going to rally all the way to the upside, because clearly price is pushing down hard. So for next week, I'd like to see price come into this area here, all right, which is the 144.054 area. So price may, should price fail to break below here, give it a retest before we drop, then price will come into this zone before we drop. Now when price is approaching these zones, of course you can't execute on the daily time frame except you have a huge capital. But if you have a minimum, a small capital, and you want to day trade this or whatever, when price is approaching this zone, that's when you go to the smaller time frame to look for your entries. I believe you know the drill by now. So guys, let me just pause here. This video is already too lengthy, and thank you if you've made it this far. And if you are yet to smash that subscribe button or like this video or even share to your friends, now is the time to do so. And also, Analysis is one thing, execution is another. So you could see your analysis playing out, but you don't even know how to execute. And that is why I've put together this amazing course. All right. So click the link. I'm sorry, our website was down for the past couple of weeks, but it's back up right now. It's due to something happening behind the scenes. I can't go into all of that details right now. So do yourself a favor, take that course. 2023 is coming to an end, and you probably have not achieved all the set goals you have in front of you. It could be trading or maybe any other thing. I can solve your trading problems, right? So if it is a trading related issue, you don't want to go into 2024 not get prepared. You don't want to keep losing accounts, blowing accounts, losing money in the new year. All right. So you should take action now. So whether you take my course or you go to Baby Peeps or maybe take a course from any other individual that you trust and all of that, just take that action. Stop blowing your money. Stop giving your money to the market. It's time to make some money, right? So guys, once again, thanks for staying to the end of this video, and I wish you a successful trading week, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.